In a previous lesson, you learned how to set up ratios needed to figure out time, speed, distance problems. In this lesson, you'll learn how to set up ratios to figure out fuel problems. Now take a look at the flight computer again. You know that the outer scale of the flight computer represents miles, but it also represents fuel, and we'll be talking about gallons of fuel. So first, let's set up a ratio. Let's assume that you've used 10 gallons of fuel in 1 hour. What's the first thing you always put on the circular slide rule side of the computer? How fast? In this case, how fast are we using fuel? 10 gallons per hour. So let's put that on the computer. First, find the 10 on the outer scale of the computer representing 10 gallons. Move the inner dial around until 60 minutes is lined up underneath the 10 on the outer scale. What you've done now is set up a ratio, the ratio of using 10 gallons every 60 minutes or 10 gallons per hour. What do we want to know? The first thing is, how much fuel would we use in 2 hours? Before you look around the flight computer, use common sense. If you use 10 gallons in 1 hour, how many are you going to use in 2 hours? Of course, you're going to use twice as much. You're going to use 20 gallons. But let's take a look at it on the flight computer. Look around the inner scale of the flight computer where the minutes are. 2 hours is 120 minutes. Find the 12 on the inner scale to represent 120 minutes because we don't have 120 on the flight computer. We can read the outer scale above the 12 and find out how many gallons we're going to use in 2 hours. We're going to use 20 gallons in 2 hours. That makes sense, doesn't it? Let's assume we're still using fuel at the same rate, 10 gallons an hour. How many gallons would we use in 2.5 hours? Well, we'll look around the scale, the inner scale, for 2 hours and a half, and that's 2 hours and 30 minutes, or 150 minutes. 15. On the outer scale, above the 15, is how much fuel you're going to use in 2.5 hours. It's 25 gallons of fuel in 2.5 hours. Suppose now, using the same ratio, you wanted to know how long it would take to burn 7 gallons. Well, gallons are on the outer scale of the flight computer. Look around the outer scale. What you're looking for is the 7 for 7 gallons. Remember, you don't have a 7 on the outer scale, so you're going to have to use the 70 instead. When you look right underneath it, it will tell you how many minutes it's going to take to burn 7 gallons. 40, 45, 41, 42. It's going to take 42 minutes for you to burn 7 gallons. You know that because you've set up the ratio of 10 gallons in 60 minutes. Therefore, to burn 7 gallons, it's going to take 42 minutes. You've set up the ratio on the flight computer, which lets you then figure out the minutes or the gallons, depending on which one you want to know. Let's change the numbers. Let's assume that you use 15 gallons and it took you 45 minutes to do it. What you want to know is how many gallons are you burning per hour? This time we don't know how fast. That's what we're trying to figure out. So we'll set up the ratio on the flight computer with gallons on the outer scale. Turn the flight computer around until you find the 15 on the outer scale. Minutes are on the inner scale of the flight computer, so move that inner scale around until you find 45 minutes. 45 on the inner scale for 45 minutes, and 15 on the outer scale for 15 gallons. Now you want to know how many gallons you would use in 60 minutes, or in an hour. So without rotating the dials, look around the flight computer for 60 minutes. When you find 60 minutes on the inner scale, the outer scale will tell you how many gallons you're going to use in 60 minutes. How many gallons do you get? Sure enough, you get 20 gallons. In 60 minutes, you're going to use 20 gallons because in 45 minutes, you used 15 gallons. You've just set up the ratio between gallons and minutes on your flight computer. We're going to be talking about this quite a bit more as you work on planning your cross country.